Ups and bass.
Bitcoiners.
Hey, Gigi.
Hey, Tina, how's it going?
Hey guys, so we are live streaming right now on the Halving live stream. Welcome. We're so excited to be here. Looks like we have 11 blocks remaining until the Halving. We are literally just bumping right up to it right now. So super excited to get this going. Let's go around and do a quick introduction to everyone. David, you want to kick us off?
Sure. David Bailey, Bitcoin Mega Bull. This is my third halving. My day job, my night job is Bitcoin Magazine and BTC Inc.
Awesome. And Tina?
I'm BitcoinTina. I'm BitcoinTina on Twitter. This is my first halving. I am incredibly bullish, as everybody knows. I think that, very simply, Bitcoin, there is no alternative.
Perfect. And Gigi?
Hey, everyone. I'm Gigi. Most people will probably know me from Twitter. I'm also the author of a book that got released recently, 21 Lessons. And this is my second halving. And I'm also hyper bullish on Bitcoin and a big believer that we're living through hyper Bitcoinization right now.
Perfect. Beautiful. Couldn't agree more. So if you're wondering why I've assembled you guys here, it's because I think we have three of the most bullish people on this call right now in Bitcoin. But I would like to find out who really is the mega bull of the mega bulls. So my question is simple. We don't have a ton of time, and I want to give you guys each kind of a moment to really explain your thoughts. But the question is, what does Bitcoin's ultimate success look like to you? What is Bitcoin's moon? And then the follow-up is, what are the societal and economic implications of that success? So it's a simple enough question, but I think it's got some complicated answers. And I don't know who we want to kick it off, but BitcoinTina, what about you kicking off?
Sure, I'll be happy to. Okay, so for me, Bitcoin ultimately changes the world in very significant ways. I was listening to Jimmy Rogers talk the other day, and both he and Warren Buffett have said if they had their way, they would give a card to every investor, and this would be a punch card, and all you would have on it is 20 punches to punch out each time you can make an investment. And that's all the choices for investing that you would ever have for your entire life. I think Bitcoin will create a world where such a metaphorical punch card exists, because we'll be living in a world with a deflationary money where its value will accrete as global production increases. The net effect of such a world, Jimmy Rogers also put it, that people will have to think very carefully about how they invest, not just throwing ideas up against the wall and seeing what sticks. The end result for that will be enormously high growth globally, as well as businesses which produce an enormous amount of wealth for humanity. And I think it will lift everyone on the planet dramatically as there is more wealth available for everyone. Second, I believe Bitcoin will destroy debt slavery, which I think is an anathema. Debt is like an addictive drug. It's easy to get and very hard to get out of. And if we could accomplish these two things, Bitcoin will have absolutely mooned. It's not about creating wealth for Bitcoiners. It's about changing the world. And I think these two things will change humanity in enormously positive ways and help us reach wherever humanity can reach.
I dig that.
David, well, why don't you piggyback and give some insight as well?
Yeah, so I think first we have to ask ourselves, like, what is the purpose of money? And money is really a tool that orders society for its maximum efficiency of really diffusing energy. And I look at, like, what is the moon in the short term, all right, that would be 100% adoption of all Bitcoin. All financial transactions that occur are happen on top of the Bitcoin value system. So that'd be 100% adoption, 100% penetration of all current financial transactions. So that's the simple version. But I think that maybe the bigger, more exciting version is all of the transactions that become possible that aren't currently possible. So I've used this analogy before, but I think it's powerful. If you look at the internet, before the internet existed, it would be unfathomable to think that the entire amount of information on the internet within a couple of years would exceed the all data created by humans over the course of mankind. That includes cave paintings, drawings, books, telegrams, handwritten letters, you name it. Every piece of information possible that the internet would exceed that within a couple years. Well, now the internet creates that much data every second. So I think that that's a similar trajectory of how much latent potential there is in the world to kind of tag off of what BitcoinTina said. All of the possibilities and the potential that are locked up because of our current financial system. You can just look around the world right now. 80% of people on the planet earn less than $10 a day. 2 billion people on the planet earn less than $1 a day. All right, it's very clear that there's massive capital misallocation happening globally when two people have basically the same ability to create value, but because of inefficiencies in how the capital flows, there's poor education, or there's poor job opportunities, or there's poor financial access, or whatever the secondary or third order effect is of our broken financial system. So I think unlocking all of that potential massively changes the potential for mankind. And then I think if you take a macroeconomic or a historical perspective on finance, asking someone in the year 1500 or 1600 AD, what do you project the GDP of the world being in, the year 2020 would be an absurd question, because they couldn't even imagine a skyscraper, much less multiple skyscrapers on a city block with many thousands of cities. So I think that the amount of potential that can be unlocked is just very, very difficult to comprehend. And I think the last point I'll leave is the biggest change that we're going to see is as we see the death of the fiat banking system and governments lose the power to print money, there is so much misallocation of capital that governments do, whether it's by setting regulatory instruments that force people into banking, or force people into the legal system, or force people into prisons, or force people into the military, or force people into the military-industrial complex. Some of our best and brightest minds in the world are being the least valuably allocated for human society. So I think it's going to be exciting to see governments lose the ability to finance that activity and see those people put to their maximum productivity.
Beautifully said. Absolutely. Gigi, so you got 2 mega bulls already. Wild cases. What are you thinking?
Yeah, what can you add to that? Amen to everything that was said. And I very much agree with the metaphor of the internet. I think what the internet did to information, Bitcoin will do to value. And as we see, the internet, everything that consists of information will be sucked up by the internet. And I think Bitcoin is doing the same thing, and we're experiencing that right now. So as it monetizes, it will suck out the value of all the other things. And I think, as David said, the obvious step is that all people accept Bitcoin, and Bitcoin becomes the default money of the world. But I think the interesting effect will also be that it will demonetize many different other assets, like the real estate market and stocks, are what have you. Like, there are many things that are well overinflated. It will be interesting to see a nation state level FOMO into Bitcoin. I think the last bull run we had was just individuals FOMOing into Bitcoin, and we didn't even see like super rich individuals FOMOing in yet, I think. And in the next couple of cycles, I really like the cross-asset model way of thinking about things, like the multiple phases of Bitcoin. And in the next couple of years, we will see the next couple of phases of Bitcoin. And at one point in time, we will have nation states forming into Bitcoin. It will be that important, in my opinion. And in terms of price, who knows what's going to happen, and who knows what kind of makes sense to talk about. Like if the dollar continues to deflate, then talking about price in dollar terms doesn't even make sense. But I think ultimately we're already living through hyper-Bitcoinization, as I said in the beginning. And what the end result is of hyper-Bitcoinization, who knows? I agree with David that there is a lot of untapped potential and a lot of misallocation of capital. And I think Bitcoin will unlock a lot of that.
Absolutely. Yeah, so I've been part of the team kind of putting this all together in the background. And while we were sitting around kind of discussing these next few months and years, one thing that was really striking me last night, and I don't know why it was so specific, but I was thinking about how, we really have built a better tool to store value. And like we've gone from shells to gold to fiat, now to Bitcoin. And it's like, think of how much more potential there is just in the actual tool of Bitcoin itself and what it can do versus what a shell can do versus what gold can do. And it's just like, it becomes a no-brainer that it becomes this really valuable thing that we have. So, it's just another thought that I had kind of just last night.
On the gold front, I was sitting down with someone recently to do a calculation of how much gold has appreciated since we left the gold window. And so before FDR took up all the gold, I think it was $20 per ounce of gold. Well, all right, well, you can do the simple math and you're like, okay, well, an ounce of gold now is $1,700, yada, yada. But what people forget is that actually the total supply of gold increases at 3% per year. And so at that pace, on a compounding basis, you're basically looking at the total supply of gold doubling, let's say roughly every 20 or so years. Okay, well, if you think about when the gold window was closed to today, that's at least 4, maybe 5 doublings that you have there. So really the price of gold per ounce on an equivalent weighted basis would be, 1,700 times 2, then times 2 again, then times 2 again, then times 2 again, then times 2 again. So, it's insane really when you think about asset classes and you try to make a true fixed supply comparison. We just don't really have a corollary to look at. Even the things that we do have as corollaries radically balloon in supply.
I want to chime in with something that David said a few minutes ago in his introduction that I think is important. We're talking about our vision of the final moon. So for me, the most valuable capital that we have in the world is human capital. It's with our talents and our abilities that we are able to create wealth, make a better world, and move humanity forward. So I tweeted something the other day, and I'd like to add to that because I've commented on this before. The tweet the other day was, imagine a world where rocket scientists were actually building rockets instead of financial engineering. And that has to do with Wall Street. Now, I've said this before. Imagine a world where you can, in anywhere in the world, very poor areas, take 4 technologies: a solar panel for electricity, mobile data, a computer, and Bitcoin. And now this person can work anywhere in the world. Imagine when you bring 2 million, 3 million, billion people into the global production of ideas, goods, and services. What that is going to do to lift the wealth and the ability of humanity to harness existing resources and to do more with those resources than they were currently able to do. Bitcoin, because of what it is, because of its unique qualities, will encourage man to better use the resources that we have because the nature of what Bitcoin is, and help to focus all of those talents, much like a laser focuses its beam on cutting very hard materials. And I think this is very special. It's not just about us getting rich, us making money, or investors making money by buying Bitcoin. It's about how much Bitcoin will actually lift humanity and carry us forward in the future, taking the world out of poverty and ultimately reaching for the stars.
Absolutely. And if I might piggyback on that, like Bitcoin is obviously the separation of money and state. Like that's what we are after as well. But it's also a massive shift in the power balance favoring the individual. And the scenario that Tina just described, I'm not only thinking of the opportunities it enables in terms of what it could work on and what kind of doors it opens, but it's also Bitcoin is something that nothing can take away from you. Like in that sense, it's basically one of the most powerful defensive technologies that you can have. Like it's such a fundamental shift in the way that the world works. We never had something like that before. Like it empowers the individual in many different ways, and I think it will change the world massively once more people realize that.
You know, taking that analogy that BitcoinTina just said and applying it historically, you know, the potential, you know, if you're a king and you want to increase your wealth, you want to increase the quality of your life, you know, capturing the highest percentage of gold possible that exists at the time is doesn't do much to change your quality of life relative to the power of future human innovation. And so today a homeless person arguably has a higher quality of life as a king or a lord just a couple hundred years ago. So I think to BitcoinTina's point, it's the potential for future human creativity and invention and innovation that just blows out of the water any short-term perspective of, wow, you know, we've made a lot of money and can go buy Lambos. It's like, oh wow, we've made a lot of money, we can go buy a horse and carriage. It's like, you know, who cares? Who cares?
We're all going to be on rocket ships anyways, right?
That's right. I mean, and I think also when people, you know, it's so easy to get depressed about the world today. I mean, there's so much negative shit going on in the world. But when you start thinking about how much potential is just waiting to be unleashed, I mean, it's pent up demand. It's truly inspiring. Like it's truly like your imagination is not creative enough to imagine all of the ways that it will manifest. I mean, it's just, I feel like if we can spread that message, that's what gets people excited about hyper Bitcoinization. That's what makes people really buy in that this is a revolution to overthrow the status quo.
Yeah, absolutely. And speaking of things that are hard to imagine, I love BitcoinTina for the way he expresses that all of Bitcoin's surprises will be to the upside, you know, and I heartily agree with that. Like, I think Bitcoin will continue to go exponential, and we will continue to have these exponential S curves, and we will just go through these phases of Bitcoin adoption globally. And I just can see one of those phase transitions basically devaluing fiat currencies so much that Bitcoin just doesn't come down. Like that will be pretty much the last one in terms of hyper Bitcoinization, I would say. And I think everyone will be surprised about the numbers. Like the numbers won't make sense. And if you just do the math on how little Satoshis there are in the world and what the potential economic output of the world in real terms would be, then it shouldn't be a surprise that there will be surprises to the upside. But I think we're just very linear creatures and can't imagine what Bitcoin is going to do in the next 10, 20, 50 years.
Satoshi designed a money which will pump and takes advantage of human nature for it to become adopted as the one and only money. And it's with this, money is the ultimate tool for societal organization. It enables us to reach past the Dunbar number. It enables us to create the most effective, what they call economic calculation. With money, we go to something which is core to humanity, and it becomes a critical organizing means for truly launching humanity for the future. And I didn't want to talk just about the idea about how much Bitcoin can go up. I think it will go up a lot. And I think that's important because that is how Bitcoin gets adopted. But the real moon is how much Bitcoin will change and move humans forward as a species. And I think that's what Satoshi envisioned when he created Bitcoin. And he knew that money is the one thing that can do it, because money is absolutely intrinsic to humans' existence. And that's how I think Bitcoin will move.
If you look at it from an evolutionary perspective, it's difficult to understand how a human can be made up of individual component cells that somehow form into organs that work in cohesion with each other, that somehow work in cohesion as a body, that somehow produces one consciousness. It's a very strange, I guess, scientific phenomenon. The closest thing I can almost see as a corollary is how money works in society, how we are individuals that each have our own desires and needs and wants, etc. But that money creates some sort of amorphous signaling system that causes us to do things that we're not really totally in control of. And I think if you look at it in an evolutionary perspective, the role that money is playing, like we could be at a very profound moment right now between the evolution of biology into something even bigger than purely the biological. I mean, truly, like, what's the next level? Where does this digitization and robotic universe go in the future? And I know that's a very out there scientific, out there idea, but I think it's it has the same level of mystery baked into it that if you look back and you're like, how did we have the first organic life come about? It's like, okay, well, somehow there was some sort of at some point in time we had some elements become complex compounds that becomes single-celled organisms. Like there's some magical moment where the inorganic becomes the organic. And are we at this moment right now where the organic is trying to become something more than the organic?
It definitely feels like we're at an inflection point. And I very much resonate also with what Tina said, like the real moon has no dollar price. And to quote Marty Bent, like fix the money and fix the world, like a lot of stuff in our current world is broken thanks to our broken money as well. And I think Bitcoin will have a profound effect on the economy and also on the individual, actually. Like if you can actually allocate your capital more effectively, you will accelerate progress, and you will also accelerate your own growth by lowering your time preference, for example, like emphasizing more savings, more long-term thinking, more personal responsibility, stuff like that. And
really?
Yeah, to loop back what I said before, I really love the quote by Julian Assange as well, that no amount of coercive force will ever solve a math problem. And I think that's very important to understand in the world of Bitcoin as well. And this will change the world profoundly.
So I have one quick question for the other panelists. How many years do you think we are away from Bitcoin not trading in dollar priced terms?
Real quick before everyone answers, this is the last question. I'm getting the signals from the back office that it's time to move on. So real quick, if everyone can answer this, and we'll give it a little wrap.
Tina, please go ahead.
I think Bitcoin can be in the minimum $3 to $5 million range between 2028 and 2032. I think there's a very good chance around that time, sometime between 2028, 2032, that a large enough internal market will have been created that many things will already be being priced in Bitcoin, and many Bitcoiners will never have to sell Bitcoin into dollars to transact. At that point, tech should have been advanced enough. So I'm guessing somewhere in that 2030 range, possibly as far out as 2035. I think Bitcoin ultimately becomes the one and only money in the world no longer than 14 to 29 years from now.
I'm having a hard time coming up with exact dates and numbers, but my gut tells me that we are 50% there, and I said that a year ago. So when Bitcoin is like 21 years old, let's say when Bitcoin is 21 years old, then I think we're almost done with hyper-Bitcoinization already in terms of it being a very dominant money in this world.
Absolutely, and that's a beautiful place to cut it off. Guys, real quick, can you tell us where to find you?
Yeah, sure. I'm Dergigi on Twitter and everywhere else, and you can also find my writing on dergigi.com.
I'm BitcoinTina on Twitter, and that's pretty much where I am. On occasional podcasts.
At Bitcoin Magazine, baby.
Same here.
Replace
Thank
your
you so much,
exchange
guys.
with TradeStation
let's
Crypto.
flip it off to the next.
Dealing with multiple exchanges is complicated, and it takes time. Except with TradeStation Crypto. Because we are not an exchange. We are a broker. You have access to multiple pools of liquidity, all in one platform, in one account, one way. Trade crypto your way. Get started in one click.
In 350 BCE, Aristotle defined sound money as being durable, transferable, divisible, scarce.
Not in generations has Wall Street absorbed the number of body blows it took today.
The world has gone mad and the system is broken.
The American financial system is rocked to its foundation as top Wall Street institutions topple under a mountain of debt.
Bailed out by taxpayers.
It's pretty clear they cannot be trusted.